Okay, so today we're going to jump right in and we're going to be adding some of our own settings and configurations that we can use for our little mod. So we're going to be doing that, and then we're going to be using those settings to determine whether you can or cannot apply a lock to a block. Sorry about all the rhyming. It's just how it is. So I'm just going to clean up a couple things. The first thing we're going to want to do is we want to have a single place where we can store all of our settings. So we're going to kind of do something like what Pahimar and Equivalent Exchange have, where we create a class. We're going to call it settings. And we're going to have some subclasses in there. And then we're going to make these private constructors because we don't want instances. Alright. So there's nothing magic about these. These are just plain old Java objects. So we're going to put, not there. We're going to include a boolean for, or we're gonna include a set of blocks, and we're gonna call it the block white list. And then we're gonna also have a set of blocks that's a block black list. And we want a boolean called white list enabled, and another boolean called blacklist enabled. Alright, so let's talk about this for a second. The reason I went with a set of blocks is because you don't want multiple occurrences of the same block in either the whitelist or the blacklist. We also kind of like the benefits of how quickly you can find out if a block is in a set. It's pretty cheap and fast. We also want to be able to turn off and turn on the whitelist and blacklist relatively easily. So that's why we had that. So this is all we really need to do, and then we can access this stuff whenever. So then the next thing we want to do is actually be able to use a config file. Forge provides some tools for doing that, and we just need to write something that can read from a file. So we're going to create a new package. We're going to call it handler, and we're going to create a new class and call it configuration handler. I should turn off those settings because I always, or that commenting, because I always delete them. Okay, so we want to have this hold a static configuration object that we can use to, save the settings or retrieve settings dynamically if we need to. We also want to be able to easily load up the config file and tell it what file to use. So we're going to say config file, config new configuration, and then we're going to call a method that we haven't written yet called load configuration. And you might be asking, why are we making all of this stuff static? And the reason is just because I don't need to have an object, so we're just not going to. Otherwise I have to figure out like a singleton, and it's just not necessary. We can just make it static. So we can use our settings object that we created. If I can spell it right. Blocks dot whitelist enabled. And so now this config object that we have knows how to read and write to the configuration file that Forge can create for us. We just need to tell it what kind of stuff we care about and how to name things, or if there's comments, or what type it is. So we're telling it here that we want to get a Boolean value, and it's going to be called box.whitelist.enable, and it's going to be in a configuration section. We can look at this once we have an actual file generated. We're going to give it a default value, and we're going to give it a comment. It's going to say enable or disable the, one second, let me see. I took notes this time. Oh. There we go. And then the next thing we want is to load up our whitelist. Well, we're gonna do the same thing quick with the blacklist, because it's the same deal. Just need to change a few words. And yeah, so we want to be able to load from, or to be able to take those, like the blocks, and serialize them into our configuration file, and then deserialize them back to objects. So we're going to create a helper method. I can explain why we have some of this stuff in a second. Let's take some strings. Return null for now. Alright. So this will translate an array of strings into a set of blocks. So why do we need that? We can say settings.blocks.block whitelist equals, and we call our method that we wrote, and we say get blocklist. And then since this is going to be really long, I'm just going to already indent it. We can say get string list, and this will get a list of strings, oddly enough, from our config file using, let's see if I can get rid of that, there we go, blocks.whitelist, blocks as the option name, and configuration.category general, new string. We're going to give it an array of empty strings as the default. We're going to fill that in with the same default in a second. And the list of blocks that are allowed to have locks added to them. Bam. Okay. So we can do the exact same thing once again with our blacklist. Not allowed. Okay, so this is all fine and dandy, but so yeah, this returns an array of strings which we can fill in using here, and then spits out a set. We want to provide a same default for two reasons. One, just because it's one less thing that other people have to worry about, and two, we want to have people have an idea of what kind of values to expect to have to put in there to make things work, and this is a way of also providing that. So we're going to provide it with just the Minecraft chest for now as its example. but we have to do kind of a roundabout way of getting that string. So we get the chest block that we already have. It's part of the Minecraft. Then we want to find the unique identifier for it, which is a special forge construct. And we're going to get that, then we can do toString, and it gives us a string that says Minecraft : chest, and then it knows how to translate that back, which we're going to write the handling for now. So we go set blocks equals new hash set of blocks, and then we can return this. So we have a new empty hash set. That's great. So now we need to turn our list of strings into block objects. Get block from name, block name. And we're going to write ourselves a note here. Do some error checking, and we'll worry about that in just a bit. Because what if the block name doesn't exist, or this is an empty string, or various other things like that that could happen. Gonna take a break for a second here because I gotta go do something, and then I will come back and we can do a little bit more. We have to do some special handling, and we will add that error handling as well as some other stuff, but I will be back shortly. Okay, so there we go. I off camera did a couple things. Well, not really, I just did one thing, but I added some checking here. And so all it does is it just stores the block as a variable first, and then it checks to see if this was null, because that seems to be what's returned if you can't find it. And then we just log a warning message, because it doesn't really warrant anything more extreme than that, and then it just keeps going. So that should be good enough. The final thing we need to do here is we need to add an event handler that can handle if the configuration changes while the game's already started, because this can happen now that Forge has added kind of like a configuration system menu thing. So we're gonna just handle that now to make things easier for ourselves later. So we once again use a special annotation to denote that we have a handler method, and then it figures out based off of that what kind of event it is. But we do have to register this one, which we did not have to do for the other ones, and that's pretty easy to do, but we'll do that later. So if event.modID equals ignore case block and key .modID. Then we do configuration handler .load. So that's all we need to do. That'll automatically check to see if this event change has to do with us, and if it does, then we reload things. Okay, so now let's worry about registering that event handler. So for this, we go here. We add a new method to our proxy interface, and since we did that, we have to also add it to our common proxy. And what we do for the common proxy is first we're going to log that we're doing stuff like we did previously, and then we are going to do fml common handler instance.bus register we're going to do a new configuration handler. And that's all we have to do there. But we now have to tell our mod that it needs to actually call this thing. And we do that in the init, right? Let me just double check that. Yes, okay. And the way we do that is we do proxy register event handlers. And like that, we have event handling for that configuration change. So this is all well and great, but we're not really using our configuration stuff yet. So let's use it. So open up our base lock implementation. So if we go back here, we hard-coded chest, but now we have a way of being able to actually detect what blocks we support. So let's try and use that. So remember, we used a set of blocks, so we need a block object. We can do that by doing block state dot get block. So now we have that. Let's actually use that. So if we get rid of this, we can say if settings dot locks dot whitelist is enabled, and the settings dot locks dot block whitelist block whitelist contains, we don't want, or if it does not contain this block, so whitelist is on and it does not have this block, we are going to return false. However, if that's not a problem, then if the settings dot blocks dot blacklist is enabled, and the settings dot locks dot block blacklist contains this block, so the blacklist is on and this block is on it, we don't want to do anything. But if neither of those things are true, if this block is not on the blacklist, or it is in the whitelist, or the whitelist just isn't on, we can continue doing things. But we do want to make a note here that we want to check if we support this block type, and we can worry about that more later. Then since we did all that, we can get rid of that. Okay, so let's run this and see what this does now. Okay, so go into our world. Just 1 second. Oh, well, I guess I can't do anything about it right now. So if we go in here, oh, that's not right. We messed something up. What did we mess up? We did settings whitelist. Oh, I know what it is. So we have to make a change to our settings because things aren't quite finished yet, but that's fine. Oh, wait, we are missing a step. We need to actually load our settings. I did so well. I'm trying to actually do things right. Okay, so configuration handler event.getSuggested configuration file. So call the init function on our configuration handle, and this should do all the configuration nonsense. So let's try that again. Okay, single player. Alright, so yeah, that's doing what I would expect now. But we should have up here, yes, our config file. Yeah, that's fine. But it didn't do something. Oh, we have to actually save it. I'm telling you that earlier when I had to stop what I was doing, I had a series of phone calls that I had to deal with, and it kind of threw everything off. We need to check if our config has changed, and if it has, save it. And this handles the first time the config file is ever loaded. It'll always be marked as changed, so we need to save it to disk, and that should deal with all of that. Okay. Once again, back in. Oh wait, actually we didn't need to go in. Because we need to change a setting here. We need to change. Oh, 1 second. I will be right back. Alright, I'm back again. My wife had just gotten home, and so I had to let her in. So if we go back in after we changed that that setting, we can see that when you click on the grass, we don't get that message down down here. But if we click on the furnace, we can get in there. But we cannot get into the chest, and it is being logged. So we're back to where we started, which you might be asking yourself, why didn't we just do this from the beginning? And the reason is that it's multiple things. One, it shows how to get something out faster and then make changes to get it closer to what you actually want over time, so you always have some kind of finished product that you can say that you did. And the other thing is to kind of ensure that everything we're doing along the way works, so we're not overcomplicating things from the beginning and then having to figure out when it doesn't work, why it doesn't work. And then the final reason is to kind of simulate what would happen if we were working on something a bit bigger at the time, like if we were going to refactor some larger piece of things. We wouldn't necessarily know what we want the final thing to be, so we just have to kind of make changes as we go and refactor the way everything looks so that it looks like this is the way it was meant to be. So in the end, we're back to having things the way that, like, essentially the way they were before, but with slightly better functionality. So now we can commit these changes. If it'll show my Git client. Maybe if I do, oh, I don't know what that was about, but let's try this. Alright, well, I'll just commit this stuff and figure out why it's doing this nonsense later. But yeah, next go around we'll probably try and do something more
more along the lines of, trying to get it to only, there we go, to only show the things that we wanted to show. Like we wanted to open or to do stuff to chests, but not other things besides just using a whitelist. So we're gonna make essentially an adapter, but. So we do that. We are all set. Alright, so I will see you guys later.